Hello everyone, and welcome to this video, which is now Reengineering the Chess Classic series. I'm Grandmaster Matthew Sadler, and this is going to be, I think, the last for the moment in the series on the great Swedish player Gideon Stahlberg. And this is an absolutely bananas game against the Austrian player, I think, Stahlberg-L.Steiner, played at Podebrady, very important Czech tournament, in 1936. Opening slightly unusual, let's have a look how it came about. So d4, d5, c4, c6, knight f3, knight f6, knight c3, d takes c4, another Slav just for Mr. Beads at the TCC. And here white didn't play the normal a4 or even the Geller Gambit e4, which probably in 1936 hadn't yet been invented. And instead played a move e3, which I've also played from time to time when I was young I am, when I was 16. So b5 keeps the pawn, and then you undermine it with a4. And black hasn't actually got much better than to play b4. But of course, you know, you're gaining a tempo on the knight on c3, and that knight has to go somewhere. Knight a2 was the move that they played a lot in the 1920s, 1930s. Actually, black is even slightly better, according to the engines. They don't like this knight on a2. It's nothing serious, but you go e6, and then you just get in c5 quickly, and the knight's just a little bit silly there. Has to spend some time, you know, getting out this way. So knight b1 became a bit more popular, and yeah, the idea being that that you're just going to recapture this pawn on c4, and the knight can come directly to a good square. The point is, however, though, that well, that pawn isn't necessarily just going to be won back. Black can actually do some stuff to try and hold it, and bishop a6 is one such idea. So, I mean, the engine preference in this position is that there's, well, basically, the engines don't think there's any advantage at all, so they want to play this move. And then you play queen c2, knight takes c3 where necessary, and you pick up the pawn, but things just get exchanged. It's nothing amazing at all for white. For example, queen a5, queen c2, bishop takes f1, king f1, e6, knight takes c3, knight bd7, and black will get in c5 quite quickly. Back in 1992, I played the move bishop e2, with the idea of just getting castled and then trying to win the pawn. Didn't go great. I was a bit worse out of the opening against Yevgeny Barev in Hastings 92. So I drew that game in the end, but actually, did I even get close to sneaking a win? Maybe I did, but it wasn't that great. What Stahlberg plays is the move queen c2, which I also analysed back in the day, unaware of this game, of course. And here Steiner reacted with queen d5. Actually, the move I was afraid of, and it's the engine move, is b3. You've got to be a little bit careful with white. I mean, queen c3, trying to keep the attack on the c4 pawn, is met by knight e4. And then e6, and the queen is trapped. You've got to be a bit careful. So you go back to d1, and the idea is basically, well, okay, you know, wasted some time, but these pawns are sort of blocked now, so they'll be easier to attack. And the idea is just that you're going to come out with bishop e2, castles, and then eventually win this pawn. But yeah, I mean, black's got plenty of play here. I mean, here and c5. And then you're going to play knight c6 later. The engines find some quite interesting sharp lines, I have to say. As always, starting with knight e5, which attacks this one and also threatens bishop f3. But I mean, black's doing fine in principle, you know. I mean, which is not too surprising with, you know, that amount of tempi taken. I mean, you know, black's done nothing wrong. So, but still, it's a maybe more interesting line than you might have thought, looking at these engine lines. Steiner played queen d5, and Stahlberg plays knight bd2, and now the engines think that white's just a little bit better here. The point is, of course, that after b3 I can play queen c3, and I've stopped the knight from coming into e4 there. So yeah, I'm just going to pick up the pawn, and then this one's going to be very weak after. Yeah, 0.95 for white after b3, so yeah, not quite winning, but definitely uncomfortable for black. So Steiner played c5, which was a good move. And now, yeah, I mean, the engines just want bishop takes c4, takes, knight takes. And, you know, what you're going to claim? You're just claiming that you've got a slight edge because you've got a nice square on c4 for the knight. You know, just nice sort of blockading square like that. And you're going to have quite free development. b3, bishop b2, rooks come to d1 and c1. Just a very pleasant position, and this queen's going to have to move because it's a little bit exposed. Engine's still making a draw, you know, with black in that position, but yeah, you know, it's not bad. But Stahlberg went for something that the engines don't recommend, but that is very, very interesting. He played the move e4. Again, you see Stahlberg here, you know, we mentioned this before, that principle, he was quite a restrained, solid player. That's what he tried to be. I mean, whenever he played simultaneous displays all across Sweden, he did loads of them. People were always complaining that he played too solidly and you know, too in too technical a manner. But yeah, I think at heart, you know, and I do empathise with this because it was the same with me. I mean, at heart, he was really an attacking player who liked unusual stuff, and it was possible to provoke him, to make him think back to his youthful days with the right type of position. Of course, it was very dangerous in that type of game as well, as we've seen in a number of games so far. So e4 and then b3, that's what the engines wanted too, just chasing the queen away from the attack of c4. I mean, queen c3 is not terrible, but you do get the chance to go knight takes c4. You've got bishop e3, and then, well, I mean, these will drop. I mean, but black's, yeah, already taken a couple of pawns, so it doesn't really matter that much to black anymore. Yeah, queen takes b3, funnily enough, was also a possibility. That's the engine preference. Takes, and then knight takes d5. Knight b3, and then you can go c takes d4. Actually, the engine's even saying that e6 is possible. That's one of those things, you know, that surprise you a little bit. But the idea simply is that this pawn is cut away from these, so the rook's going to come to b8. Yeah, invade on b4, b3. You know, black's got full compensation for the pawn there, but still quite interesting there. But Stahlberg played queen b1, which, I mean, you know, from the human point of view, I think is the real natural move. And here probably Steiner made a slight inaccuracy, although, yeah, completely forgivable. Queen e6 is apparently the move that they wanted. It's minus 0.28 according to the engines, and the idea, I guess, simply is to stop d5 because of knight takes d5. So the engines are recommending knight g5 and then bishop c4, which looks great, but you've got this annoying little check from black, knight d2, and then they want to go knight c6 here. And you're coming in knight d4 to c2, so you've got to be a little bit careful there with white. And so the best thing that the engines see is to make sure that you do exchange off that piece there. Knight takes b3, queen e4 check. And, well, as always, you know, after quite a few tactics, then we're just getting back into an ending. And, well, this is an extra pawn for black, but it's not going to last long. You know, you'll just line up with bishop e3, rook c1. Things are just going to get exchanged, basically. But, yeah, it's a little bit unnatural, queen e6, and it does make you a little bit worried about getting hit by knight g5. So Steiner's move is much more natural. It's to play queen b7. I mean, you keep this one protected, and you're also attacking the pawn on e4. But after d5, it's 0.44 for white, according to the engines. Steiner played e6, which is a pretty decent move. Just break open that center. And after d takes c6, he played yeah, a move that both Torch and Stockfish also choose, which is knight c6. I mean, f takes c6 is possible. It will actually transpose to the best line that black has. But knight c6 is pretty decent. And obviously, you know, what's black aiming for? A very quick knight b4 to c2. So great little game so far. Huh? It's really nice. So bishop takes c4 was played by Stahlberg. Takes. And now this is where Steiner started to go wrong. He went a little bit bananas, in actual fact. Queen b4 check is recommended in the tournament book. By the way, I mean the quality of the annotations in this tournament book, it's contemporary, written in 1936, actually pretty good. Found recommended a few pretty good things. I don't know who did it in actual fact. I couldn't quite understand it from the descriptions I saw of the book, but it's in Czech, so it might be one of the stronger Czech players who did that. But this is the annoying move for white. I mean, basically you have to move a knight back. This one, in this case, takes castles, and then, well, rook d8 is possible, or castles, queenside. And yeah, I mean, very unclear position. But black's king in this case is quite weak, but you're quite advanced and fighting in there. c4's coming in. The queen's not very mobile at the moment. So yeah. I mean, it's like a hyper sharp semi-Slav Moran, basically, and would have been quite interesting for black. But what Steiner went for was knight b4, which is obviously really sharp, going for knight c2. I mean, it's just one of those things, where you might sort of say to yourself, well, even if I win the exchange, is it so amazing? Because the rest of my position is getting a little bit blown apart, really. So yeah, a move like queen b4 does feel somewhat safer. But okay, knight b4 is good fun. E takes f7 check played. Not the engine choice, actually the engines were going castles, but actually this turned out very well, because after e takes f7 I had to check it in multiple sources, but it's really true. Steiner played the move king e7, and I'm just not really sure what he was thinking about, really, when he played king e7. Yeah, the engines say plus 4.07 after that, so it is a bit weird. I mean, queen f7 does look so natural. I mean, I guess that he was sort of thinking he wanted to keep pressure on the e4 pawn somehow, but still, you go knight e3, you're attacking this this knight there. And then the engine, this is not obvious at all. The engine's saying here, and knight d3 is an idea, and you want to follow up with c4 and just cement these pieces in. It's pretty unclear. It's just a real mess there. But yeah, I mean, queen f7 is pretty natural. Even king f7, I mean, okay, you can get checked, but that's not crucial. And because it's nothing else that's really going to follow up, and at least you're getting the chance to get your king developed. I guess that the black was just a bit worried, maybe not about an immediate check, but in the future, and thought, well, I'll avoid that. But yeah, okay, I mean, castles, you go knight a6, knight c2 rather, and white's got to find some good moves. Actually, knight a5 is possible here, with the idea that if queen b6, I can just go knight takes b3. And then knight a1 is what the engines want, because here knight d2, queen here, and rook a3, I think that's the one, picks up the knight, so you can't actually hang on to it. So you've got to go knight a1, and then it's kind of unclear, right? I mean, we've got e5, we've got queen a2 checks and knight g5. You would rather be white in that position, and well, the engines are winning games for white, so it's obviously quite a big advantage. But even that doesn't look as terrible as king e7, because after king e7, white castles, and then yeah, you go knight c2, but this king is just blocking absolutely everything. I mean, maybe black was thinking, well, with knight c2 I'm stopping rook e1, so I'm going to go queen takes e4 here, and and have some fun. But still, I mean, it's really the whole fact that you're blocking all your pieces in. I mean, it's always going to end up giving white some compensation for any exchange that you can win. And I mean, you can't keep the white queen out forever, right? I mean, you're going to go bishop g5 and queen d1 if nothing else, So I think it's just I think he got a bit overexcited about what he could do to shut out the white queen and rook, and didn't quite think it through there. But still, some nice finishes all the same. So e5, knight e4, knight g5 from Stahlberg. Quite nice. I mean, other moves were possible. Bishop f4, bishop g5. But knight g5 is quite nice. Just, yeah, looking to clear the knight away and then recapture with tempo and then get the queen into play. And that's what happened. Queen d1 indeed. Yeah, I mean, the engines are often suggesting something else. Knight a5 in this position, for example. But yeah, it doesn't really matter. I mean, white's still veering between, +2 and +3 all the time. So, very, very strong here. Knight takes a1, and then I thought Stahlberg showed very nice vision here with this knight a5 move. It's not an obvious one, not obvious to put. You're attacking the king on the king side, and then you put your knight on the queen side, furthest away possible. I've seen that actually. It reminded me a little bit of there's a game in Silicon Road to Chess Improvement between Ali Stein. Who remembers Ali Stein? Actually, Stockfish and Ali Stein. A quite amazing game, but where Stockfish sort of moves a knight to the side of the board. The first Stockfish NNUE actually moves the knight to the side of the board and then comes back, and this is very much it. I mean, actually what you're trying to do with this knight, you're trying to get control of the d5 square, so chase the queen away from that square. Steiner played queen c8. Queen e4 is actually the engine choice and recommended in the tournament book. And in the tournament book, actually gives this line, queen e6. I think it's with queen e6, this one, but I mean king g6, or maybe it was king g6 they gave. Queen takes a8 and then knight c2 with advantage to black. Because you're hitting the bishop on g5 and the rook on e1. But actually what the engines want is the move bishop d2. And if knight e1, then queen e8 check is extremely annoying. Because after king f7, you have to go queen c6 check, king h5, and then I go bishop e1. And yeah, okay, you're the exchange up, but your king's got a lot of problems. We've got e6. This pawn's going to drop. White's got very, very good chances. The engines were winning all of these positions. But again, quite impressive from the tournament book, and there's still one impressive thing to come, actually. So queen c8 was played, queen d5 check, king g6, and then e6, which is a really strong move. Basically cutting these forces away from the white king. And well, I mean, you are seeing some sort of path for the knight back to attack. So again, it's very much that Stockfish Ali Stein game where that knight's coming in through the queen side. Actually, we're already talking about force mates in these positions, according to the engines. And actually, after h6, Stahlberg missed a force mate that the tournament book recommends as well, which I was really impressed with because it's not so obvious. What Stahlberg could have done here is to play the move, instead of bishop h4, which he played, to play the move queen e4 check, king g5, and then you might want to pause the video just to give yourself a test here, because it's not at all obvious. The very best move is to play g4, which is really nice, threatening queen f5, king h4, queen h5 checkmate. So yeah, what can you do? I mean, if you try and escape, we just give checks and checks, and that's just completely gone. Yeah, if you go to d6, then it's the same story. I give a check and then mate a couple of moves faster. If you go g6, we go h4 check and then king g2, which is really quite nice. And yeah, I mean, something like queen c7, queen g6, and then you can't stop rook h1. Well, the engines will stop it for you for a little while with queen h2 check, but that's not really gonna solve things. And well, if you go king h4, which is the best, then f4, and this was the continuation given by the tournament book. So well done, that contemporary annotator. Yeah, if anyone knows who annotated, I saw Gilg on there, and he was a strong player, but I don't think that he was contemporary. Maybe he was. but I don't think he could have annotated all the games in that tournament. It was a lot of players. I don't know if anyone knows anyway who annotated that, then do let me know. Yeah, so f4, and yeah, we're just going queen f3 to g3, and there's actually no way at all to stop that. So queen d8, queen f3, queen d4, king g2 was queen d2, rook f2. That was the engine line, and that was good enough for victory. So very nice mate there, quite unusual. Haven't seen, can't remember seeing anything too similar to that. Stahlberg didn't take any risks. He played bishop h4, king h7, rook a1. So, you know, white's got a pawn for the exchange here, but obviously black's position is a bit of a mess. We're also going to take this one as well. We've got our passed e pawn. King's not that great either. So g6 was played, bishop f6, bishop g7. He took and played knight takes b3. Maybe not the very most accurate, but certainly way good enough. The knight's coming back here into d7, and then you're going to have queen e5 check and, you know, some sort of knight f6 check. c4 was played, knight c5, queen c7, queen d4, king h7. And now, well, the engines like to go knight d7 and just try and finish that off with some sort of mating attack. Stahlberg just played very quietly with queen d7. The idea being, you know, you're going to go rook d1, knight e6, and the rook ending is just going to be completely winning. So rook b8, king f1, rook b2, rook e1, threatening rook e8, g5, rook e8 played, rook b8, takes, knight e6, c3, last desperado, but just king e2. The king's in time to stop the c pawn, and black's not going to be able to stop the d pawn. So there we are. I hope you enjoyed this game. I thought that was quite stunning until Steiner went a bit bananas with that move, king e7. I thought both players had played it really well, actually. Very unusual position, completely unknown to them. And I mean, Steiner's plan of very aggressively playing the knight c6 to b4 was really cool, you know. But yeah, just king e7. I would be intriguing to know what Steiner was thinking of when he did that. What exactly he had in mind. But yeah, I hope you've also enjoyed this tour of Stahlberg's games. Obviously, I presented you know, a reasonable number of losses and draws as well as wins. But yeah, I mean, that's not meant any disrespect, of course. It's just that he had a lot of interesting games, and as I've mentioned, yeah, you know, it's just he was a very good, solid, you know, player. And tried, I think, to play that in order to be as strong as possible. And some of the most interesting games are the games where he left that behind, remembered his youth, and then just went for it. But obviously, then the results were a lot more up and down. But here he came out on top, you know, just very bravely and very principled way, just trying to get at the black setup. So I was pretty impressed with this game on his part. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this, well, I mean, I'm sure I'll find more unusual, great players to look at in the future, well, we'll see what we come up with next. Lots happening in the chess world, of course. We've got the TCC Swiss, where Stockfish doesn't seem to be having the run of the pairings, I have to say. And also the Olympiad starting as well, so maybe there's some interesting stuff there as well. But anyway, thanks very much for watching this channel. Really nice to see all the comments, so keep them coming in. And yeah, thanks very much for watching, and hope to see you at the next videos. Thanks for watching.